Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Recovery Playbook. I am so blessed to have a very strong woman in recovery. Her name is Jessica Landon. She is a sober companion, she's an Instagram influencer, and she has a new business with some very savvy women called the Sober Mom Squad. Welcome, my dear friend Jessica.
Thank you. Thank you for that warm welcome.
Yeah. So we jump right into it, and can you just tell our audience how someone goes from being a sober companion to an Instagram influencer to now really this up-and-coming business, the Sober Mom Squad?
Well, you know, I've worked in recovery since I think I was 2 years sober when I knew I wanted to contribute in some way. Got into recovery, and as you know, being on the front lines, you know, sober coaching closely, companioning closely it's hard, it's exhausting, it's draining, and it takes a lot out of you. It's almost like fostering and nurturing the growth of a baby. You know how recovery is when we're in the beginning. So then it sort of evolved, and you know, the pandemic hit, and Emily, the founder, sort of noticed, she's a recovery coach, she noticed a lot of moms coming to her, women having these drinking, examining their relationship with alcohol and questioning, and before not even questioning, you know, not being addicted to alcohol, but sort of the pandemic hit, suddenly they're home, they're drinking more, they have all these responsibilities, they're using alcohol to cope. So she was like, what do I do? And she sort of did a call to action on Instagram, and 4 of us were like, we're noticing the same thing, and we want to contribute, we want to help, and let's put our heads together and create something. And that's sort of how it was born. It was like, let's create a community for moms in particular that have all this stress, you know, managing the household, homeschooling, kids, job, working from home. Let's create a community where moms can come and support each other and feel heard and vent and have access to resources and expert speakers. So that's how it started. It was just a need that was filled, and boom, we created it. It was like, if you build it, they will come. That's what happened. Like, you know.
It's true. It's a program of attraction.
Exactly.
It's a program of attraction. I just want to slip in a quick question. What was your experience being a TedX speaker?
Well, you know, that too evolved. They started doing talks from home. So I had to like produce my own essentially, and I'm not a producer. It took a while because I was like, okay, I gotta, you know, sound, mic, all the stuff that you have to do, you know, to create a good talk. And then I edit it together, and actually it's almost finished. They just have to put the graphics to it, and it'll be done. So hopefully I'll be able to do it live in 2021. Yep. God willing, the pandemic, you know, COVID subsides. And if not live, then at least at a show. But anyway, it'll be on YouTube soon. And so
what's your topic?
It is childhood trauma associated with addiction and the science of using laughter and humor to heal.
Love it. I love it. We'll talk about trauma, drama, and pain later in the podcast. But I think you would agree that it has to do a lot with how we make choices later in life, for sure. So the name of the podcast is The Recovery Playbook.
Okay.
It's a combination of entrepreneurship. It's a combination of what was your playbook early on, what was your playbook now. And so I want to take you back 7.5 years ago to your rock bottom.
Okay.
Give me your rock bottom, but then more importantly, give me your playbook, your first 90 days, your first 6 months, as a single woman out there in LA. How did you stay sober?
Well, okay, so let's go back to the rock bottom.
Rock bottom. Give it to me.
Let's rewind. So, I mean, I had taken my addiction really, really far. You know, I was a hope to die alcoholic. I was on the streets, homeless. This is 7.5 years ago. Homeless. I had befriended this like ex-veteran that was staying at a friend's house and he was singing outside of Ross for money and getting me a bottle and bringing it back. I don't think he was playing with a full deck. All he knew, I convinced him that I was going to have a grand mal seizure and die if I didn't continue to drink alcohol. So he just kept bringing me, and I was drinking around the clock. I became just immobile and, you know, urinating and defecating on myself. For like a month, I atrophied down to like nothing, and the acid from my urine burned holes in my skin, and I got a blood staph infection. All my organs started failing and went to the ER at Brotman, was in ICU for 16 days. And all I remember is overhearing my dad say to my granddad over the phone right outside the hospital door, well, it looks like she's going to make it. And I thought, oh my God, not again. Not again. Because you're not there when you're in the cycle. And then when you come to and reality seeps in, it's the worst feeling in the world. You just want to escape it. I just wanted vodka so bad, but by the grace of God, I didn't have the strength to get out of the hospital bed and leave. And I wanted to live a little bit more than I wanted to drink. And that was the thing that shifted is, people always ask that $1 million question. Well, like, what did it? What was the shift? Yep. What was the switch that went off? And it was like, the memory of pain associated with alcohol finally became greater than the memory of pleasure. It just shifted, finally. But I had a high tolerance to pain, clearly. But it took that to get me to go, oh, okay. And it took a lot, the blessing was it took so long to get physically well that it stayed fresh in my mind. Just learning how to walk again. I had a physical therapist that had to teach me how to walk again. I couldn't get up off the side of the hospital bed. I was 78 pounds. I had to have 2 blood transfusions. I was so weak, so anemic. So having to take so long to get healthy, it kept it fresh in my mind, and that gave me that break that my brain needed to return to homeostasis and start thinking clearly and absorbing, recovery. I went to, what my playbook was, is I literally depended on meetings and connection. I went to 3 meetings a day. Some of my parents went with me. I had been to treatment like 9 times at that point.
Was this in Los Angeles, Orange County?
I had a brain hemorrhage and then my bottom in Los Angeles, and then I went to Napa. I begged my parents to go stay with them in wine country to get sober.
Of course.
It was great. But where there is alcohol, there is great recovery.
Hey, that's a good point. That's a very good point. That's a very good point.
So went to Napa and depended on 3 meetings a day. My parents nursed me back to health. I was there for about a year. Meetings. Gratitude, prayer. Wasn't in jail. Was so grateful for a warm bed. Was like, because I had spent a month in jail as well right before my bottom. So I was just so grateful for life. That first year was all about gratitude. And that kept me sober and prayer. And after that first year, I felt strong enough to come back to LA where I had, had associated a lot of those memories, but I was strong enough and I rebuilt my life. And as it's like you said, it's very different as a single person, what self-care looked like compared to motherhood. Yeah. So different. Back when I was single, because I was single.
Yeah, there's a lot of single women listening who are sober, yes. So give them your playbook because I want them to follow it. When
I was single, first 3 years of my sobriety, I was single. Single, celibate, loved it. All about me. I would literally spend sometimes 2 hours in the morning, just prayer. A lot of times exercise was part of my routine. Sometimes meditate, mostly prayer. Prayer was my big thing. On my knees, prayer, conversation with God.
The book?
I love conversations with God.
Great book. Great recovery book. We'll talk more about books in a bit. Yes.
But genuine, authentic conversations with God were just so a part of my self-care and recovery, and really shifted my perception and shifted my identification from body identification to spirit identification, because I needed that, because growing up and my trauma and sexual abuse from my childhood really made me focus on and think that my value had something to do with my body, and that's what I had to offer the world. And so I had to have that shift to spirit identification to really to recover from that, because that was and forgive myself, because as a child you think you did something, bring it on, and that was a huge part of my recovery, was forgiving myself and letting go of because my drinking was very punitive. It was very filled with shame. My drinking it looked like I was trying to kill something in me. People would always say that, like, God, with the way you drink is like you're trying to kill something inside of you. And it was always so profound to me, because it was like, I'm trying to kill that shame and that demon, that screaming demon in me. But it all had to do with my childhood trauma that I had to release, that I had to walk through that trauma and realize that I didn't do anything, and forgive myself, release myself of that. And that's really when I was able to recover, is walking through that and working through that trauma.
So, in terms of your own opinion, your own experience, can you give the audience sort of that ground zero of what childhood trauma, pain, shame is, and why it's so connected to alcoholism and addiction?
Well, I mean, in reality, it's very physiological. It's stress hormones, the cascade effect, and putting a person in that survival mode. They're going to seek out the chance of addiction, high-risk behavior, cancer, all those things goes up tenfold because you're in sort of survival mode when those things happen to you. It's a cascade effect, adrenaline, cortisol. And so you seek out something as a medication to medicate that. And it's so common. I think 90% of women that drink excessively or are addicted to alcohol or dependent on alcohol has had sexual abuse in their childhood. So there is such a strong correlation between traumatic experiences or adverse childhood experiences and addiction or high-risk behavior and illness, impact on health just in general, because of the way it affects you physically. And I think that, understanding that really helped me. Understanding that, looking back, I can see how, because I started drinking at a really young age.
Oh.
11, 12. I saw my dad's liquor cabinet, and I thought, I wonder if that would fix this visceral, uncomfortable feeling of my skin's inside out. I did something wrong. I did something that deserves punishment. Nobody knows about it, and I have to hide this secret under the surface. How am I going to do it? It's so heavy. It's like an elephant. And I remember that first drink felt like I could breathe. Like, now I can cope with life.
We say a lot that, alcohol is not the problem, it's the solution.
Exactly.
The problem's inside.
Exactly.
And I get trying to kill whatever's going on inside. I think a lot of people are trying to, what we do is we have something going on, and we pile on the drugs, the sex, the alcohol, and then eventually we become addicted to all that sort of this, and it becomes our formula.
Well, it's like what Gabor Mate, who I love, he's a researcher and psychotherapist. You love Gabor Mate as well.
Amen.
It's like what he says. We shouldn't be asking why the addiction. We should be asking why the pain.
Yeah, for sure.
And everyone that's addicted to something, you dig deep enough, you find that, you uncover that, and unearth that pain. So.
Good stuff. So you got on the subject of shame. We talk about 3 words in this podcast, the Recovery Playbook. I think we covered shame. I have 2 more that I think are central to the program and also our recovery. Resentment. What is resentment to you, and how do you get in it, and how do you get out of it?
Resentment's ugly, man. Resentment is the seed of... I have to constantly, and it's an effort, I'll be honest, I have to constantly make an effort to keep my side of the street clean every day. Because it'll get dirty, and it'll build up. And then I start feeling an itch, a knot in my stomach, not good. How do I medicate this feeling? What do I do to fix it? So I have to stay ahead of it. And I have to constantly, at the end of the day, is there anything I'm holding against anyone or myself? Sometimes it's a resentment against my own self. And so that's really an awareness thing. That's being aware of your, like another what's his name? Vanderbilt that wrote The Body Keeps the Score. Yeah. Resentment will sit in the body, and you start feeling it. So I have to listen to my body and make sure, and then look, okay, I have to do an introspective exploration of this past week, and what could I be holding on to, and who I need to talk to about it. What do I need to clear the way? And it's pretty consistent that there's little things that can build.
For sure.
So resentment's huge.
Here's what I want to know, because I just know you're a doer. I know you're willing to be willing. Give the audience some tools that get you out of resentment.
Talking, communication is huge.
Get it out.
Get it out.
Yeah.
Communication.
Okay.
because that heals everything. You have to hear, you have to feel heard, the other person has to feel heard. You have to get it out there. And if it's with yourself, the resentment has to do with just you, talk therapy, talk about it to somebody. Communication's huge. Yeah.
Do you journal?
I journal. Actually, I stopped journaling for a while just because I was like breastfeeding 24/7, put pen to paper.
Yeah.
But I started up again, and I can't tell you what a difference it makes. Even just gratitude lists. Oh my gosh, it amplifies your life and invites more blessings when you
Give us an example of you journaling, and then down the road it happens, it manifests. Give me an example in the last 6-9 months that has happened.
When I start really focusing on what I'm grateful for, like for instance just my family and the fact that I have a son and a significant other that loves me unconditionally, you know, and my family forgiving me, and just when I start writing everything in my life that has come to fruition and is in order now, I get to experience, you know, I had Christmas with my family, and then I was proposed to, and I was blindsided by it. I don't know if you saw the video.
That. Yeah. You did good. You did good.
I thought I would always have an inkling when he would propose. Had no idea. Anyway, but that's just an example of like, it just gets better. Life and family and what you're grateful for just grows and gets better. You know? So yeah, I think.
By the way, every year I do a word of the year. You may have seen this post where it's a post-it. I put a word there, and what I do is I put it on my mirror where I brush my teeth, so I see it for 365 days. You just brought up better. Better is my word for the year.
Wow.
Yep.
And how do you, in context, like, is it every day you look at it and think, okay, I'm going to do better today?
Better husband, better father, better boss, better
Love it.
friend, you know. Pearl Jam, better man.
Yeah, one of my favorite songs.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome on resentment. So my last word, and it kind of ties into the first two, forgiveness. What is forgiveness, according to Jessica Landon?
To me, that's the key. That's the key to the other side. If you want to feel, and I'll tell you something, I couldn't come to a place of forgiveness of myself until I felt valuable enough to forgive, and that came with building my self-worth by helping others. It was the only way I could finally forgive myself is when I felt of value to other people.
Yeah.
I wasn't worth forgiving. I was trash when I first got sober. I was the one that did all these things in my addiction. But when I started building my self-worth by helping other people, listening, going to meetings, driving people to meetings, you know, anything, volunteering, feeding the homeless, I started feeling valuable.
There's an old saying, if you want to have self-esteem, do esteemable acts.
Yes.
And I agree, 1,000%.
And these are cliche platitudes,
I know, but it works.
They are for a reason.
It works
yes.
if it work it. I mean, it's like
exactly.
we can just go on and on about one-liners and cliches, but they do work. They do.
Yeah.
So I'm going to kind of jump back to the recovery playbook angle of this. And here you are, a mother, a future bride. What's your recovery playbook today? And how is it different from those single days?
You know, I'll say that I've had to cultivate the skill of learning how to connect to source and do a little self-care while momming, while breastfeeding, while knee-deep or elbow-deep in dishes, while doing the laundry. You know, I've had to learn how to do it then. I don't have to have the perfect environment to connect to God and start praying or start verbalizing what I'm fearing that day, or ask to be stripped of my ego and my fear-based thinking and replace it with love-based thinking. I can say that at any time and self-correct and get realigned. And it's different. It looks different. It looks a lot busier, and I don't have that hour or two in the morning to really focus on myself or go running by myself, which I fantasize about sometimes. Having that alone time and all the time in the world to do self-care. I don't have that anymore, but it hasn't depreciated my connection and my, how would I say it? It hasn't taken away the value of what I do to get aligned every morning, because I figure out a way to do it in what I'm doing. And I'll pray while I'm breastfeeding out loud. And he just stares at me. And it works, and I get what I need. And then at the end of the day, when he goes down, I read 4 chapters of something illuminating. That's all I need is connection to source, reading some personal development, quit lit, few chapters, and I'm golden.
Speaking of literature, books that have been transformational for you in your recovery.
Recently, Untamed, incredible, by Glennon Doyle. I'm sure a lot of people say that because it's like a Bible. You pick up her book, they're very short chapters, so you can just pick it up and, you're vibrating. Like, it's incredible.
Yeah, I really feel that she is...
She's
a channel.
She's a channel.
She's a channel.
That's it.
Yeah,
she's
and
a
really
conduit.
for women too. And she's been through the trenches.
For sure.
And so, what about early days? What were some of your books you had in your early days?
A Return to Love was what got me sober that year. A Return to Love, and that's what kind of introduced me to A Course in Miracles. I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Beautiful, beautiful. In fact, I'm doing Marianne Williamson's Course in Miracles program right now. Every day she sends a video. Anyway, that transformed. That was another thing that sort of shifted my perception of everything, of life, and sort of deepened my connection and connection to spirit and myself, and understanding myself better. So that was sort of, AA was like saved my life. And then I was able to sort of graduate and explore and evolve and go deeper into source connection. So, yeah, Course in Miracles, A Return to Love. I highly recommend it for beginning of sobriety. First book, pick up A Return to Love. Not just for women, men too.
Okay, good. So one of our taglines here at Startup Recovery is shifting addiction to passion. And what I have seen in the short time I've known you is that when you're on Instagram, you're passionate about what's going on in your life. And you are, part of my friends here, pretty funny motherfucker, if you must say. How did you decide to create characters and comedy and all that, and a brand, basically, on Instagram?
It's funny. I was just talking about that this morning because I was saying how I used to live for comedy. I mean, having a baby is hard and it kind of takes a lot of your energy, so your passion kind of takes a backseat for a hot minute. But comedy has been, since getting sober, comedy saved my life in a lot of ways. Comedy, I used to use comedy to numb. I was in a comedy group and I used it to deflect and numb back when I was drinking. It kind of went hand in hand with drinking, and I used it a lot. But then I discovered you could use laughter and comedy to heal. So I started doing characters again and came alive maybe a year into sobriety. And I was like, wait a minute, this is what I needed. So I started doing it on Instagram, and it felt like kind of an outlet and a way to make fun. There's so much to joke about when it comes to recovery. And we have to. I mean, look at the meetings. People are so clever, so hilarious, and they're like stand-up comedians. I mean, we have to laugh at our past or we're going to shoot ourselves. I mean, let's face it. So I think realizing how needed this levity was in the recovery community, I just ran with it. I was like, we need to laugh. We have to have this outlet. And characters come by nature. I mean, anyone I meet that I think is kind of quirky, I'm like, I'm doing you. I choose you.
Poor people.
I know.
Poor people you come across. That's funny. So how about this? Another thing that is one of our cornerstones we like to talk about here is mentorship. Have you had mentors in your life?
Absolutely. I think every sponsor I've had was a mentor. Right now, I have a mentor that has a beautiful life that I want, and I love all the advice I get from her. I call her, and she has been one of my greatest mentors this last year. I think she's really added a lot to my sobriety and my recovery, just having her as a mentor. Absolutely.
Sober Mom Squad. What's your intention? What's your goal? How do you see this thing going?
It's growing rapidly. It's incredible how many moms needed this. They needed this, the inclusive aspect, the sober curious aspect, the you don't have to identify with alcoholism. You don't have to be an hope to die alcoholic like I was. You don't have to be any of it. All you have to have is a desire to have a better life. If alcohol's not serving you, see what we have to offer, see what life has to offer without alcohol. So I think
Let me
that
ask you real quick. Is this a rebuttal to the mommy wine culture that's out there?
absolutely, and
Okay.
I think
And please talk to our audience about that as well.
we noticed that booming and infiltrating the internet when the pandemic hit. It was like, oh, kids drink wine, all these stupid, have to drink a bottle before noon because my kids are screaming all this ridiculous stuff. That what does that say to our children, first of all? And it was so toxic, and we thought, you know what, we need to go against this because this is poison collectively. So absolutely, it was a rebuttal to the mommy wine culture. And I think a lot of moms were starting to recognize and examine their relationship to alcohol when seeing that. It was like in your face. And whenever that happens, it's like you're going to have the opposite sort of grow with it. And so I think the mommy wine culture, we sort of got on the coattail. It was like, all right, well, we're going to build ours, and it's just going to grow with you, because moms are going to start questioning this. And the Today Show, all these media outlets started, wanting to shine light on this, and it's been an incredible resource for so many women. It's just
Where can they find information about this?
sobermomsquad.com and any of our Instagrams. Yeah.
This came to me. I believe your fiance is in recovery.
Mm-hmm.
I never asked this question on the podcast, but why did you choose a man in recovery versus maybe some of your prior boyfriends, significant others? And I asked that because obviously I'm a guy, you're a woman, and I just want to know, like, when you're choosing partners as a sober woman, how is that different than it was when you were out in your disease?
When you're broken, when you're in your illness, you're going to seek others that are in their illness or sick in some way. And
Would you deem them lower companions?
yeah, yes, and I did that for years.
Yep.
Obviously, that doesn't work for many reasons, but I always said, it's funny you say that, because I always said I am not going to be with someone or end up with somebody that's in recovery.
Really?
It just increases the chances of just raises your odds of something going haywire, and I don't want that. You don't control who you fall in love with. The man of my dreams happens to be in recovery, and I love it. I love that he gets me, that we bond on that level. I love that there's an understanding.
You speak the same language.
You speak the same language. You don't even have to talk. There's a
mutual
connection.
respect.
There's a mutual respect. There's an awareness of what does that person need. There's a hypervigilance for each other. And there's just that deeper understanding that is beautiful, and it's cosmic.
Good. I'm glad you got to talk about that, because I see your happiness.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to wind down into my fun questions that I told you about earlier, okay? These are the quick fire ones.
Okay.
What's your favorite recovery slogan?
Ooh. What is my favorite recovery slogan? It's God's will, not yours.
Bring it. I like it. What's your least favorite?
One day at a time, just because it's overdone. I like 1 minute at a time better.
Oh, and there are days that you are 1 minute at a time.
Exactly.
Newcomers better discover that real quick.
Yeah.
What was your aha moment in recovery? Where the switch went on. You got in the boat and you said, I'm going to row.
The shift from body identification to spirit identification. The getting that, oh, this isn't it. The temporal world, this isn't it. This is just a blip in time in the grand scheme of our soul evolution.
Got it.
That was an aha moment, having that reality.
What turns you off in recovery?
What turns me off in recovery is death. Is so pervasive, is blatant everywhere. Death, constant. That's hard. You got to bring a lot of light into recovery to counteract that reality that people are ODing everywhere all the time.
They say if you join the program, buy a black suit.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that's been a tough thing for me to handle over the years.
Yeah. And you never get used to,
I'm such an optimist.
Right.
I mean, when I first got into working in recovery, Jess, I thought I could bat 1,000. And
Right.
just kind of how I'm built. And over time, I realized I got to let go.
Of that expectation. Exactly.
What's your favorite step?
3.
Turning it over.
Yeah. Because that's really when the magic happens. When it's in God's hands, no longer yours, you know.
Definition of success.
Definition of success is jumping from failure to failure with undiminished enthusiasm.
Boom. Is that an original? Jessica Landon?
Yeah, that's actually from a scientist. I think I heard say that a while back.
Okay. I will give you credit.
Yes. I may have changed the words, so maybe it's not exactly.
What profession other than your own would you like to try?
Ooh, forensic pathology.
Oh, okay, CSI.
I wish. That is the most
Really?
fascinating. I love all forensic pathology shows. Yeah,
Okay.
Dr. G. Oh, I want to hear about the physio. Like, how did they die? What happened with the? I want to cut it open. I want to see what went wrong.
How do you handle blood?
I'm okay with it. Yeah.
I'm not. I
Really?
get my blood.
Really?
Oh, I'm a big wimp. Yeah.
Are you one of those that like passes out?
I pass out on the site. I don't pass out like yeah. You just.
Oh my gosh, men are such. Good thing you don't give birth.
Oh no! It's not. Yeah.
I always say that to Matthew because he's like that.
Yeah.
That's why you don't give birth.
It's one of my. I got everybody. I have an Achilles, right? Okay.
Man.
What profession would you not want to do?
Ooh, accounting.
Me
Numbers.
too.
Really?
Oh,
You say-
absolutely. Oh my God. So I've written short stories and scripts and books, and the accountant is always the bad guy because I just can't. I just can't
understand their brain.
Yeah.
Well, their left brain. Yeah, it's like
it's
numbers.
too simple. It's too like cubicle Carl. Is what
Yes.
As an accountant. Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, the accountant's watching the show.
I know, right?
All right. So my last question is: if heaven exists and Jessica Landon is able to get to the pearly gates, what's God going to say to you?
You were always worthy of heaven.
And always will be all caps and underline.
You were always worthy of heaven.
Well, you are an angel, my dear friend. You really are. We love having you up here. You bring such a great spirit up here when we've had you come speak at Sober Mentor Night. And where can people find you on Instagram? Where can they find more information on what you're doing?
So Jessica Landon 12 is my Instagram handle. SoberMomSquad.com. Again, my website is JessLandon.com. Facebook, Jessica Landon. I think that's it.
Awesome. All right.
This was so fun.
So fun. Yeah.
I love you.
I love you.
I love you.
We really tried to keep this going.
Did we talk about our
We
answer?
didn't.
I hope so, because I want to cut.
We were a little bit down it. So, everybody, that winds up another episode of the Recovery Playbook. My guest is Jessica Landon. She's part of the Sober Mom Squad. She is a super sober mom. I've seen her with her 13-month-old? 14-month-old son. She is definitely a woman of sobriety, of service, of recovery. And I'm just so blessed to have her once again be our guest today on the Recovery Playbook. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.